So in spirituality, the word ego is used in so many different ways. So when I was with Ramesh Balsekar, he used to use the word ego as what I would most probably call the character or the personal awareness. So he would be like, you are your ego. This is latterly in his talks. And when he said that, he meant you are the character, like the human is the character. The human, the person that's speaking is the character, is the ego. And then there's this absolute speaking that happens, but the speaking, in a way, you could call the character, even though it comes from nothing, it comes from consciousness, or it comes from that infinite space, it comes through this character. So you'd say it's Lisa speaking. So he would say it's the ego speaking. Eckhart Tolle uses ego in the sense of like a I think he calls the ego the negative thing, like the pain body. So the ego is the suffering, the seeking, or what I would call the seeking, the attachment to having pleasure and avoiding pain. So this would be the ego to him. And then I think other teachers would say that ego, the collapsing of ego is enlightenment. And I don't know what they specify as the collapsing of the ego. So people use that word in different ways. And then you've got Freud as well. He used like the superego, and yeah, I forget the way Freud and Jung use the word ego. But yeah, there's so many different meanings to it. So I tend to stay away from the word ego. And I tend to use the personal character and the personal awareness, and then the seeking energy or the attachment to the personal character. But what I meant in this title was, what does like freedom mean as opposed to a healthy character? So because a lot of people assume that the me collapses or the person collapses, they then think that the body-mind doesn't have a character. So the character isn't an identity necessarily. So everybody has a character, like my dog has a character, which I could describe like she's playful, she's cute, she's flirtatious, she's fierce, she can be a scaredy cat as well. She's beautiful. Like all these things describe her character, and they sort of describe actions of ways she is. Like it's not a static of description, although you could say beauty is a static thing. But it tends to be actions that we describe as the ego, like she likes chicken as opposed to carrots. She likes being playful as opposed to being grumpy. She is more playful than grumpy. And these are characteristics of the body. And this is what we call the character, and what some people might call the ego. And there can be an unhealthy ego or a healthy ego. And that's got nothing to do with waking up at all. Although it's often the case that the character, the ego, becomes more healthy as you get into this path, hopefully. Hopefully you're listening to lots of wise teachers that help create a more healthy ego or character, whichever way you want to say it. So it tends to get more healthy, but not all the time. So there can be waking up when the ego is completely, or the character is completely unhealthy and unbalanced, like drug addict, depression, loads of suffering. So ego to me is characteristics of the body. So Lisa is a particular characteristic. My mum is, my dad was, my friends are. They're all particular characters, all particular egos. And some of my friends have more healthy ones, more psychologically healthy ones, where their life is more balanced and peaceful, and they are in less conflict with people, they have less strife. There might be strife that comes about from external means, but generally in their way of being, they've got quite a grounded way of seeing things. And then I've got ones that really aren't, that have addiction, that drink lots of alcohol, and in the evenings or in the day or whatever. Yeah, so there's a different variety. And I would say that most people in this society don't have that healthy characters, because it's not something we focus on in a society. And a lot of parents are disbalanced and have unhealthy characters, so it's something we pass on. But it's But we're becoming more aware, so parents are becoming more healthy and more secure bringing up their children, and we don't have too much trauma in our society, in the sense of we're not in war, we're not in strife or famine in Western society. So that is emerging more healthy, psychologically healthy parenting. But that's not the same as waking up. A lot of people mix the two and say that the person wakes up, so the person has got to be more still, or the person has got to obtain a certain way of being, or a certain freedom. And that's okay to speak like that. That mostly has good effects, but it's an illusion that the person is going to get to stillness. Like, that will be an impossibility, because in a way the character is a movement in time. So even the person that's trying to be still and achieve stillness is a movement in time, because it's known. So if it's known, it's moving in time. It's something that's happening. So what's not moving in time is what you could say is consciousness, which is nothing, not a personal thing. It's not something you can own. It is the experiencing of this, which is not located anywhere. It is this. It's even beyond the experiencing. It's like this, but this is experienced, and this is no thing and everything. That might seem really complex or really simplistic, depending on how long you've listened to me for. Yeah. So what I'm trying to express is there is nothing wrong with making the ego healthy. That doesn't negate freedom. Just like having an unhealthy ego doesn't negate freedom. So it doesn't negate freedom if you want to have more healthier relationships. Like, it's kind of like an insanity that people get into this mentality, and I know they do in non-duality. They think putting effort into being kinder, into being respectful, into exploring your psychology exacerbates seeking. So it encourages seeking to work on the character. But they wouldn't say that if the person was sick and working on the body in regards to sickness. It's just on the personal dynamics, which to me doesn't seem correct, because how can working on the character be any different from working, say, on illness of the body? Because the character is an effect of the body. The part which they're pointing out, which I think often comes across as very confusing, is the idea that your freedom comes from working on your characteristics, or working on your life for that matter. But it doesn't mean that you don't work on your life. It doesn't mean that you don't attain to be more happy, balanced, integrated in society. It doesn't mean that that is abolished, because that all of that encourages seeking, because that would be a seeking in itself. That would be an idea in itself. So it's like, oh, I can't eat food, or I can't go to a party later, because all of that is seeking to become something. I can't enjoy myself. I can't heal my leg. I can't go after money, because all of that seeking. It's not seeking. Seeking happens in that, but it happens in all areas of life: money, food, sex, success. But there's also just the natural momentum which is below that, that's happening, because that's the nature of life, to survive and expand and to thrive. If you look at a tree, the tree isn't like, oh gosh, if I grow an extra branch, I'm then going to encourage seeking and I won't get enlightened. And healing the body-mind, like changing your thoughts, is no different from healing your relationship to work, or doing better at work, or learning more things for work, or healing a broken leg. It's just the characteristics of this machine. It's no different from learning how to cook a cake. If I do this, there's an attachment injury comes up, I get triggered, these thoughts are produced, and then there's argument, I argue with my partner. And that is no different to me than everything else. It's just a practicality that the body gets triggered when it feels abandoned in a particular situation, and that's nothing to do with liberation. That's just a triggering of the body, and that can be healed by understanding that triggering. Just like if you had an autoimmune disease or you had some type of disease, when you understand it, then you can go back to the roots and create a different outcome. The other thing is that what non-duality teachers or some non-dualities would say, because it encourages doership. Only if you look at it in the wrong way, if you don't see it as all a happening. Like, so the healing of the body and the healing of the personal dynamics is a happening, like baking a cake, like striving to improve your work dynamics or ethics or knowledge, like learning a different language. It's just a program that's running, and your program has learned that if someone behaves in a certain way, it triggers in you discomfort and then arguing and then lots of suffering. The suffering part, though, is the important part. That is the attachment and belief it's you. I feel like psychologically it's really hard to heal if you really haven't seen that the personality isn't who you truly are. It's something to do with this body, because it's too personal. Like, some people maybe can do it, but for me it was too personal. Like, that was me. I was behaving like that. I couldn't really admit all my dynamics and all my ugliness. It's not really ugliness, it's just part of these machines, because I thought that was me and I was doing it. And so when you see that that's not you and it's not you doing it, it's a happening, it's a machine acting out dynamics which has been taught, then you see the innocence in everything, everyone, and yourself, and then there can be a true examination of the changing of that programming, which is very specific, like cooking a cake. A lot of people that come to me are suffering lots, and they think that waking up is the solution, but it's often, a lot of it is about reprogramming the character. It's about the character having difficult programming and not knowing how to reprogram that or to see it in the right, correct light. And so actually in one-to-one sessions, I often work a lot on the personal dynamics, because it's not really about non-duality. It's more about the suffering of the person in the day-to-day life, which comes from painful dynamics arising, and then the attachment and the belief that that is who you are. And that's the suffering non-duality part, the belief that that is you, and the belief that freedom comes from you being different, and the freedom comes from the body being a particular way. This complex subject, I don't know how understandable I am. Yeah. Oh, pardon me. So it's like if I had acid in my stomach now, lots of people, I don't have acid in my stomach now, but I had a burp because of most drinking too quickly, and all the speaking creates air in my tummy. And if I said or asked for people's advice, they could give me 10 things I could do which would improve that. So if I'm not getting on at work, or if I'm having difficulty interacting with people, or if I generally feel exhausted and don't want to, depressed about my life, there are lots of things that people could suggest to you which you could do differently, which should improve your life. And that's beautiful. But that doesn't mean there's a person in there, just like it doesn't mean there's a person in there if you give me advice about acid in my stomach. Oh, I'm not looking at the camera, I'm looking above the camera. Funny. So that's not me doing it. So there was a looking above the camera, looking at the wrong place. That's not me doing it. That's a happening. That's the body appearing. It's like wound up in a particular way, and it will follow a particular pattern. but it's nobody's. Isn't that fantastic? That patterning belongs to no one. This centralized I is a pattern as well. And then this centralized I goes crazy and claims everything and believes that happiness is found in time. There can be more happiness in the person as the ego becomes more balanced or the character becomes more balanced. But happiness isn't a permanent thing. Like, happiness in the personal level is feelings that come and go. And so that's always going to be dissatisfying when you think that happiness is a personal thing that arrives in something in the future. If I become more balanced, then I will be really happy. My relationship will look like this. My life will look like this. And there's all these ideas about what life looks like. And happiness is really this moment. It's the appearance of this moment. It's the last place the person looks. The person looks in all these things and all these becomings and all these doings. It doesn't mean we don't make things nicer, that we don't iron things out, because the person goes quite crazy from the belief that it is somebody and from the conditioning in time. It's really this moment. I mean, forget like all this non-duality babble of consciousness. It's not consciousness, it's no self, it's this, that teacher's wrong, this teacher's wrong. It's just this moment. This moment is what you are. This moment is empty and full simultaneously. And this is the freedom. The person is constantly in time trying to find freedom there. It's like this story, this narration, this energy running of time. They did this, I did that, narrating what's happening, complaining, nagging, seeking, searching, berating. And there's no freedom there. It's really this moment, right here. This is free. This is so free. This moment rejects nothing. Like, what's it rejecting? What is it rejecting? It abandons nothing. It's not about knowing yourself as an intellect, as some part of you. It's becoming this oneness. You always were this, but it was hidden, so it's going back to this. But it's not you, even though I say it's you, it's just this. It's so beautiful and free. And it just wants to be like, yeah, celebrate itself. Not for any reason. It doesn't care about all our elaborate stories of like, this is love, this is the greatest love story of all time. It's seeking for itself, it's evolving to expand to many dimensions in supergalactic future of Fantastica. It just doesn't care about any word you utter. That's mostly like about the highs and the lows of the body. It's like the body tells a story and it gets high. And then there's this, which is vastly still and silent and yet in movement. It's empty and yet it's appearing. It doesn't want or need anything. The body wants and needs things. That's an appearance in this. It's beautiful, but it's not you. It will come and go. That's your experience. It comes and goes. Yeah, baby, yeah. Yes. This is so alive and free and beyond the mind. This isn't an intellectual thing. There is no right or wrong teaching. I don't get it, all this like, this teaching's right, that teaching's wrong, this teaching's right. It's like the C thing. I'm not allowed to speak about it, otherwise I get suppressed. The big C, although they might have taken that out of the algorithms now, but the big C that happened for 2 years. It's like the people that believe that you should get the big V, or you shouldn't get the V. It's like the right wing against the left wing politics. It's like this mentality of good and evil. This is the true teaching, ba 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 da, and this is the bad teaching. I am with the true teacher. Really? Are you now? Does that make you feel good? No, because there is no me. It's just what is. Okay. Who cares? And then there's this, and there's this, and there's this, and there's this, and it doesn't care if you believe in that teaching or that teaching. It doesn't not care, it just is celebrating itself beyond concept, beyond idea. I have the right teaching. Follow me. Follow me. Ba 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 ba. We're off to stick our flag in the mountaintop. We are right. We are right. Telling everyone we're not, because we're not. Here. Doesn't matter. Even this. If you stick your flag in this of like there's no right teaching or wrong teaching, stick my flag in this. This is the right way to be. I'm the centrist, no right, no wrong. That's all balls as well. That's all for the character to get high off. Oh, drink nearly went. But when I said that, I imagined like a little bunny like humping another bunny, like beep, 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 beep. I am the centrist. I don't believe there's a good teaching or a bad teaching, and that is right. It doesn't matter. All bonking themselves silly. The centrist, the left, or the right. And then believing that's got something to do with anything. It's got nothing to do with nothing. This is what is. This. And it has no perspective at all. You can say, you can claim, you can do anything you like, and it has no perspective, good or bad. It's so totally unfair that fairness doesn't even arrive in it. It's not fair or unfair, it's so beyond that. It appreciates the growing of the leaf as much as the fumes coming outside of like a mega Airbus plummeting through the sky. The fumes, oh, the fumes coming out of a mega Airbus plummeting. No. Zooming through the sky. Plummeting implies crashing. Yeah. Yes, my world cup. Even though none of this world really exists, because this is all there is, I still have a cup that says a world does exist. So I'm just trying to create irony, you know. There is no world, there is a world. There is no world, there is a world. Just in case you try to hold on to anything. It's on a cup, in a room, in Europe. The world is on a cup in Europe, but there is no world. So we're sitting in a no world with a cup that has a world on it. Drinking a drink of nothing. Yeah, I'm just going a bit bonkers, aren't I? Yeah. That's what happens after you spend 38 minutes trying to fix sound. So it's only a problem on your computer. Everybody else doesn't have a problem with sound. The sound is perfect. But on the computer, in my earphones, it sounds like it's crackling. Since you're loopy. Okay, we can go to questions.